understand. You're a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, folks, good morning, and welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. It is Freewheeling Friday. We are dressed down today because it is a down day. We worked on Wall Street Monday through Thursday. You always had to dress the best you had to dress. And then on Friday, it was down day, but down day did not really mean this. So I'm one of the many perks, along with avoiding vaccine employer mandates, of working for myself. All right, speaking of work, no bueno. The employment situation, otherwise known as the monthly jobs report, absolutely bit the big one this month. The consensus forecast on, we had a consensus forecast, much like Econo Day, all right, which we love. By the way, you want a really good source. If you go to Wall Street Journal and they tell you it's their consensus, that's literally their consensus, and that's their poll. Reuters, same thing. Right, so how well does Reuters polls, how well do they poll elections? Not very good. So why would we think they can do much better with anything else? We always liked, it almost is like the average of polls on Real Clear Politics as opposed to just one poll. And we take analyst consensus forecasts, and that's what we always did on PPD before the, Google News tyrants. But in any event, if you want a good consensus forecast, Econo Day takes in most of the people that we used to calculate our consensus forecast with, if not all of them. Many of them were almost exactly, many were the same. All right, so when you hear this consensus, it's going to be a little bit different than what you may hear on Fox News or whatever, but generally in the same ballpark. The consensus for this month, and why is it important? Because summer months are very important. Going into the fall, very important. We're coming up a few months from now, we'll have the seasonal employment numbers. JOLTS is at an all-time high, which was first set under Donald Trump, and we see us, itched above it here and there. But under Donald Trump, people were actually getting these jobs, and the new job openings were creations, not long-term openings, all right? And we know that from the hiring rate, the firing rate, the separations rate, right, quit rate, all right. 740,000 was the consensus for total non-farm payrolls this month. It came in at 235,000. If these were decent jobs pre-pandemic, this isn't that bad of a number. But when you have chronic long-term employment and record high job openings, And sadly, the progress we made from moving to a service sector back to a goods-producing sector under Donald Trump. Why does that matter? Wage growth, simple, pure as day. Plus, it's from a national security point of view, better to be a goods producer than a service provider. It's that simple. This sucks. And last month was revised higher to 1,053,000 after 943, but we took that report apart last month, and there is nothing in the revisions to suggest any better. Those are gross distortions from service sector jobs, and the only reason why wage growth even appears to be decent is because of the ridiculous incentives that employers are having to give right now to get people to go back to work. This couldn't survive, but this couldn't perpetuate itself forever. We weren't going to see at least even numbers like that. And now we don't. The ADP National Employment Report comes out Wednesdays before the employment situation by the government focuses only on private sector jobs, equally sucked. So maybe now we know why we got this last month. Hang tight, hang tight, hang tight. Yeah, let's get the overall. Let's put up the overall so people can see the trend. All right? No more government juice. No more government crack. So now we simply have this. This is what we got. Not good. Not good. This stinks. This absolutely stinks. All right, so, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. The public polling project, as usual, way ahead of the curve. Way ahead of the curve again. And what do we see from this? We see that last month we saw the economic confidence index among registered voters was collapsing. That is the logo is kind of in the way. Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index. Okay? And, yeah, it kicked Laura. Yeah, just hang tight, Laura. Hang tight. I saw your message. You know, sometimes it really stinks to be right. But we've been tracking this for months under Joe Biden. It never really, you can clearly see where we started here. It was never great. During the time where we saw all of the government money being direct deposited and mailed to people, to their accounts, to their mailboxes, it looked like it may get a little bit better. But it didn't. Because as we told you then, there is no evidence that government money can be can sustain in the long term. There's just, it doesn't exist, folks. It does not exist. So that's a shame. That's tragic. It is. Let's see what else we want to show. A couple other things. These are show announcements basically. All right. And Laura, you can come back on. I'll try. You can try to come back on. I'll give it a whirl again. All right. But let's put up the generic ballot vote from the locals community. Ta-da-da. All right. So a total of 465 people voted. All right, in the locals poll, which was a post put up on my locals page. And generally speaking, we were simply asking, what are we going to call this thing? We're going to start the generic ballot now that Labor Day is here. All right, I am still an old-fashioned believer that Labor Day is the kicker, right? Even this, but with everything that happened with Afghanistan, and then the amount of interest that we did see in the last poll, I do believe that people are paying enough attention now. All right, so I'm not sure how much predictive value there will actually be from this, folks, but at the very least, we'll be able to have a trend line. So we'll start it from this point on in. A lot of people, by the way, a lot of new donors this month. Let me give you guys an update. Normally, we don't have this many donors. I'll refresh it at risk to the thing crashing on me. Okay. Wow, we're really almost there. The very first public polling project was the biggest as far as total donations we had ever seen. It's 163 individual donations. This one is the second biggest. Well, the summer 2021 did have 84, but I think we may surpass that number, judging based on where we're at now, which is 4,980 out of 6,000. So we very well may surpass it. We have a lot of new people too, which is very good, because the bigger the base, then the less burden it can put on the entire community, right? And eventually locals who voted in this poll, locals will be, that's our goal, right? Is that we'll just have a tracker that comes from locals. That's our ultimate goal. And we're not there yet, but we are making progress faster than I thought we would make it. Without a doubt, folks. Without a doubt. All right. All right. So now that we're doing this, I told people there are different ways that you can ask about a generic ballot, right? The U.S. House of Representatives, who we're going to vote for, the Democrat or the Republican candidate in your district. There are different ways that you can ask it, and there are different things we can call it. It's known by many different things depending on what website you go to. Generic House vote. That's Real Clear Politics. Some people call it the generic House ballot. Others, like Rasmussen, the generic congressional ballot. And then just generic ballot. We've talked about this, how to word the question. I'm going to briefly go over it again. But we, and I hope I didn't influence anything here, but I did just want to at least mention that I personally prefer and always have the simple generic ballot. And why is that? Because of how we're going to ask the question anyway. If the elections for the U.S. House of Representatives were held today, for which party candidate would you vote in your congressional district? We are making no bones about the fact that this is about the House of Representatives. If it's a generic congressional ballot and you say, for Congress, who are you going to vote? Then I think you could, we're not all politicos. And I think you're running a real risk of confusing certain people that may or may not think you are talking about the Senate. Is there a competitive Senate race in that state? If there is, then they may, be confused. All right? So, yeah, that's why we do it that way. Anyway, pulling into it was pretty close there for a second. Between the first three, generally, it was pretty close. But now we can see pulling into the lead, 40.4% is generic ballot. So you guys can keep voting in it. I'm not sure if there's I guess there's still a ton of people who are paid locals members that could vote. Everybody can vote in it, by the way. Not just supporters who are paid, but members. Everyone can vote in it. So if you want to, knock yourself out. All right? But it does look like, the generic ballot has had a pretty consistent lead, and that's what we're going to go ahead and call it. All right? Let's see, what else is on the to-do list here today? There was something else I did want to talk about, and right before we go into some of the other stuff, you want to bear with me for a second while I try to bring in Laura? Let's go. Okay, yeah, okay. I got you. Hang tight, Laura. Hang tight. All right. And she won't, she's not going to be on it, for those of you who are constantly, bugging Laura to get on. She's not going to be on it, but she will. Hey, you there, Laura? Can you hear me? Yeah, I guess not. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, you can. You're there. People can hear you. I don't know. Well, actually, I'm not sure people can hear you. People can't see you. I will make sure people only hear you. Okay. Laura's going to call. She wants to be able to. Look, we're inching Laura in here. All right. Under the headline, the best producer ever. All right. You there, Laura? Okay. I'm echoing because you have multiple things going out to you. Okay. Just do me a favor and say something. And let me see if I can bring you in this thing. They can't? All right. So I can hear you. Can we just deal with that for right now? And we'll go forward in a little bit. All right. Yeah, we're trying to inch Laura into this, folks. Okay, and I'm doing my best to try to do so. We will have to see how far I get in this plan. All right. All right. You can hear me. She's laughing. All right. So Laura, it looks like the generic ballot is the winner here. I mean, other people can continue to vote, and we can give it to them. But before I get into this, I want to just tell everybody that I am not by any way, shape, or form trying to tell you that the game is rigged and not to vote. I did a Twitter thread yesterday, and I got some actually pretty valid responses, but I think that it's so important that I need to do this on the show, okay? And it's about California. I have showed you guys all of every day, every single day in my email inbox, I have an image from a voter in California, or used to be in California. And usually it's one of two things. The latter, the voter no longer lives in the state of California, but at one point was in fact a resident of the state of California, now lives in another state, and received an unsolicited mail-in ballot, which they could simply mail in, fill out, and mail in if they wanted to. Let's be real, no one's going to match the signatures, all right, which is part of the conversation I want to talk about. But this is the second example is typically somebody who lives in California still, is an eligible voter, and has received numerous ballots to their address in the names of other people who they don't know. And what that is, folks, is what I've been telling you about for months, even months before the 2020 election. Somebody lived at your residence prior to you. They no longer are there. They're essentially a change of address flag. And now you are receiving their ballot because perhaps they went somewhere else and didn't put in a COA. Both are concerning. One is probably a bit more concerning than the other, because if that ballot is going to, like, another address in Louisiana, like we discussed on Twitter yesterday, it's not Louisiana, but it's another state, right? And then I retweeted another one. It was from Montana, right? Sheridan, Montana. Got one from Oroville, California. They obviously have a change of address flag in the system, and yet California is still sending that ballot to their new address out of state. Are there legitimate reasons for this? There are. There absolutely are legitimate reasons. But right now, there's no mechanism in place to separate, someone who's out of state in college or out of state for their job or something, and they're only temporarily in that other state. They still want to be eligible to vote in the state of California, whatever it may be. And California is by far not alone in this. They're just among the worst examples when we look at the numbers. And they are the model that every other state took. While the media told you there were no problems, this would not lead to any potential for exploitation of the system, that was a major lie. The big lie is the term the media is using to go after people like, Mike Lindell, and I've disagreed with the voting machine thing. I just don't think that's the heart of this conversation. What we're talking about now is the heart of this conversation. Part of it anyway, but it's the heart of it. The real big lie was that there is no way to exploit this system, and not only is it not widespread, but it's not possible. And I'm going to show you right now that not only is it possible, it is easily exploited, and that it could be widespread. I'm going to show you what Barnes and I meant when we told you that this could be outsourced. In an era with Trump derangement syndrome, okay, you had people like, what's her name at the NSA, I'm forgetting her name already, Winters, right, whatever her name is. You had a man who worked for years at the Senate Intelligence Committee, Wolf. You had all, and I could cite these examples down the line. You had career people at Maine Justice, career people in the FBI, all risk their professional and personal lives, professional careers and personal lives, freedom, their freedom to do something that was illegal, against the rules, whatever it may be, to hurt Donald Trump. That's how bad TDS was in the system. So, do you really have to stretch your imagination so far to be able to envision all of these people they created, this mass TDS, to envision these people who receive these ballots simply filling them in and sending them back? Does that really take you? Does it take you to stretch your imagination so far to be able to see that as a potential reality? Of course not. Of course not. And believe you me, when we made these calls, you could tell by their voice on the other end of the line when they really legitimately did not request that and somehow it was sent in, or when you have a hunch, well, I think they did fill that in. Oh no, I don't know who could have done it. And if you could hear Laura right now, she'd tell you. You can hear, sir, yeah, this ballot went out to this address, your current address. It was not eligible. Would you know by any chance how that could have happened? Right, Laura? Can people hear you? They can't. I wish they could, but I mean, you know it when you hear it. And this idea that this is normal and this always happened before 2020 is a load. This is why we had, the idea of not sending out unsolicited ballots and even ballot requests was this inherent safeguard within the system. Because if you didn't have a legitimate, right, Laura, I can hear you. If you didn't have a legitimate record at such and such address, if it was a record that was outdated, then you wouldn't request it. So by them sending them out unsolicited, they're flooding the zone, they're flooding the system with ballots that otherwise would never have gone out. It was an inherent safeguard built into the system. And now that safeguard is gone. And what is the answer? What's the remedy? The only remedy is to rely on people to do a thorough matching of signatures, which, come on, folks. We know that does not happen. Which is why you will hear people like Matt and myself say, we absolutely need a fingerprint mechanism of some sort. And you know how I feel about all these other issues. But you're putting a fingerprint on an iPhone every day to open it, aren't you? You're giving it facial recognition. You're doing something. If you can do it to open your iPhone, folks, you can do it to secure the vote. It is not asking too much. Believe me, they got it anyway. They have it anyway. If you were born, they got some print of yours. All right, so let's take a look first at California. This is excluding, this is the voter file you can open up, all right, and this is, you know what, 1 second. I don't want to risk, I wrote it down in my notes, and I don't want to risk, Laura says, I can hear Laura. Yes, madam producer. I don't want to risk the connection, so I'm going to pull it up on my notes here instead of, okay, here we go. All right. By the way, all of this, fake-ass PolitiFact, fake fact-checked me over, and they did so by twisting what I meant, what I was saying, and by twisting the definitions of these terms that we use. They had, I don't know if they didn't know them, but either way, it was sloppy, shoddy journalism, excuse for journalism. Not even Snopes made that mistake, who also called me. And a simple phone call, hey, what did you mean, would have clarified that. But they weren't interested in that. They were interested in being part of the real big lie, which is that the system is not exploitable, and that's a lie. All right, look at this picture of the voter file. Before I change to it, I'm going to tell you what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at what I see when I open up the voter file and I go to a specific state. In this case, I'm going to California. All right, it is the industry norm to immediately exclude suspected deceased and change of address flags, or what they call movers, which means they have a change of address. They're a recent move, or supposed to be recent, but the fact is they're movers who have moved many, many years ago, still on these voter rolls. But we do so because when we go to pull a list off of the voter file, we're pulling cell phones, emails, landlines, whatever we're doing, we sure as hell don't want to pull people who no longer live in the state or who are dead. There's no point to do that because they should not be in the electorate, number one, and number two, it's a waste of money. Every record costs money. So if I want to pull a 100,000 strong list off of California, and you're going to see in a second, the odds of, if I don't exclude them, the odds of me putting them in that list and wasting my money, or theoretically wasting my money, is extremely high, given how many of them are on the voter file. All right, let me just bring this up. All right, here we go. Here is the voter file on the back end when I run a query, and I will respond to people's, somebody had at least an intellectual question about booleans and queries, all right, using my SQL. Well, I'm not even sure this runs. It may be in window now or whatever, but it's faster than it used to be, so they probably did change to it. But in any event, it's still run like a traditional query, and there are Boolean values and or, right? And I want you to take a look at the total where it says state summary at the very top, right next to the blue button where it says run count. The state summary are 23,121,820. Keep that number in your mind. Of course, you can't remember every single one of them, but just remember 23 million and change. Little over 23 million. 23 million, 100,000 plus. All right? Hold on, let me get a sip of water. That's, again, next, while I'm taking a sip of water, that's the number next to the blue button. All right, so just keep that in mind. Hold on, one more. All right, notice that there's a number that where it's checked. There's a checkbox, and it says unique individuals. I'm making sure here that we're not duplicating addresses. I'm looking for records of individuals that are unique, okay? Because I'm trying to pull out every single eligible voter. You may have 5 eligible voters in your household, so I'm not going to check by address. I'm not going to check by name. These are unique individuals based on first name, last name, middle name or initial, birthday, and then the address is secondary. But again, there can be multiple people living at the same address. So we're looking for the most accurate total number of voters that are on these, that are in the voter files. All right? And you'll see when you exclude change of address flags or movers and deceased, suspected deceased, that brings us to 632,867. That's a pretty damn big disparity, folks, from 23,121,820. All right? Now, let's exclude only movers, okay? Okay, right? And this is excluded. Yes, this is excluding only movers. You can see I am including the deceased. All right? There are 20,653,779 when we exclude only movers. What does that mean? It means there are about 20,000 suspected deceased people on the voter rolls in the voter file. Suspected, which is a big deal because the bottom line is you will find out very shortly that this system lags. It is imperfect. It is not a perfect system. When you die, who do you call? When you move, who do you call? Right? Okay, so let's exclude none. Let's bring them all back in here. Now the next image will be everybody. And everybody for the Boolean questions, everybody is simply the combination of these two. I only did it the way I did it to show you that the vast number are not deceased. That difference, the disparity between state summary and what is excluded from both the movers and deceased almost 3 million, 2 million plus, is largely from movers. It is not from deceased, even though, having 20,000 likely deceased on your voter rolls is not a good look. Right? That's a lot of, in a close race, that's a problem. Come on, let's get real. All right, let's look at now the new one. Do not exclude deceased. Do not exclude movers. Please tell me the number you see there. Exactly. It's damn near identical. 23,121,820. So the difference is 44 voters from the overall state summary. Do you understand what I'm telling you here? I really need everybody to understand what they're looking at. The vast majority is from movers. It was about 20,000 between the total state summary and unique individuals. The difference was 2.6 million, something around that. You can go back and look, but ballpark. And only 20,000 of them came from deceased, roughly 20,000. The rest of that came from movers, people who have change of address flags. When you add back the movers, it accounts for almost every single one of those records except for 44. 44! People do need to understand what I'm saying. Does everyone understand what I'm showing you in this image? And in this entire conversation in general? If you do, then you understand how badly you've been lied to about the potential for mass exploitation. When you send out these ballots unsolicited, you are opening up enormous holes in the system. This is what Robert and I mean when we say it was easy. All you had to do was export the F word. All right, and I'm playing, because we're on certain channels here. All you had to do was outsource it, not export, outsource it. And if the electorate is filled with TDS, they're rabidly ideological. Folks, we just saw somebody deny Candace Owens a COVID test because of her politics. These are people who claim to be, our last line of defense against the pandemic. If you don't think of somebody who is willing to deny treatment to somebody because of their political views is also willing to fill out an unsolicited ballot that should never have arrived on their doorstep, then you're fooling yourself. This is the sad reality. This is the sad reality. I wish you could hear Laura. This is the sad reality of the state of politics right now in our nation. It's just, that is it. And for those who say, you fill that in, you're getting a felony. No, you're not. If you're lucky, you'll get a slap on your wrist. I mean, if you're unfortunate, you'll get a slap on the wrist. But in truth, nobody is looking. That's the truth. The audit they're calling for, in California right now, you're hearing about the AP. Headline in the AP today, suspiciously, after I put this up yesterday. That would not catch this. It would not. So, I mean, this is the real big lie. All right, especially when potential wrongdoers know that the verification procedures are a joke. And worse, they know, they feel it, they see it from the media coverage. They know it's going to happen. They knew the media hated Donald Trump. They know the media hates Larry Elder. And they know the media is covering for all this anyway. They know the media will cover for them. What are the odds of them being busted and the media making themselves look like fools? Come on, let's get real. It takes little to no thought for someone to return one of these unsolicited mail-in ballots. Little to no thought to consequence. If you give And I will say it, Laura, yes, I hear you. John Adams said it best. If you give people the opportunity to break a law, they will, for their own personal gain, they will do so if they do not feel as if there is any punishment. And that is why we need laws and need enforcement. Because unfortunately, men, humans in general, I'm not picking on men here, human beings in general are not angels. Otherwise, we wouldn't need laws. And by the way, even before, I just want to say, I am absolutely not trying to say everything's rigged, don't vote. That's what they want you to feel. That's how they want you to feel. You, by all means, you absolutely go vote. Absolutely. But I have to say this. I can't be alone in the messages that I received in my inbox. I know that because I have been such a vocal, I've been such a large voice on this, that obviously if it happens to somebody, they say, who could I take a picture of this and send it to? Who would care? But I can't imagine other people who pretend to do what I do for a living. I cannot imagine for a moment that these people also don't receive the emails that I receive. I can't imagine for a moment that these people also don't see what I see. So having to watch other elections, so-called election experts, lie to you the way they have lied to you, and to pretend like not only is this not problematic, it's not even real, has been more than a little frustrating, more than a little disappointing. And like I tweeted, more than a little, nauseating, mildly nauseating, to steal Jim Comey's word, who should have been doing his damn job. Along with Bill Barr, who did nothing. Because there's only two explanations. They're either complete and total pretenders, and they don't have access to this stuff. They just don't have the tools I have, and they pretend to have like some insight that gives you, that is like blessing you with this this great political analysis because they have insight to things that you don't. They're either complete and total pretenders, or they're big, fat, dirty liars, or both. But it's gotten, I skew towards many of them don't have it, but I do know many who do, and yet have gone on with this charade as if this wasn't problematic. The truth is, even if they did, so many of these people are so ideologically corrupt, they'd be willing to be big fat liars even if they did know the truth. Because again, that is the sad state of affairs in our national discourse today. That is the sad state we're in. That's how rabidly political we are. Professionals are, sadly. The people who are supposed to be giving you their objective point of view, their objective analysis, they are liars. They're lying to you. I just proved to you that they are lying to you. That isn't deceptively edited the way some people accused us of doing. That's outrageous. Did I build a database of 23 million voter records in the state of California just so I can manipulate it? Are you joking? Do you realize how stupid you sound right now? Is it more likely and it wouldn't have to be just California, it would have to be nationwide because I've done this in other states too. So is it more likely that I built a nationwide database of over 200 million individual records just so I could, and somehow have an algorithm that, every time I run a query like this, it always comes back favorable to my point of view? Is that more likely, or is it just more likely these people are dirty, corrupt liars? Given the media's track record, which one is it? Folks, I can code. I'll admit it right now. I can write a WordPress plugin. That's about the extent I can do to coding. There is no chance I could build a database that large. No chance. No chance. That's That's real. Yeah, Laura, you're doing that to me, man. You're distracting me. I am. I'm trying to tell them that right now. What Laura wanted me to remind you is that they actually did accuse me after the election of attempting, of like, I don't know, creating a false database like that. I'm not going to say it out loud, like for the same reason Matt didn't want to expose his vendors, because these people get attacked badly. But people in the industry, and if you look at the bottom, people in the industry know exactly who that is. That is the largest voter file vendor in the country. And everyone who's got a relationship with them knows that that's true. That is not some manipulated, deceptively edited image. That's it. And I've done it live for you before. They are lying to you. Period. Nothing is fake news there. Nothing. And you know, watching these things, these tweets over and over, and I'd seen that one particularly because Dave Rubin was like, I think there's no, I guess there's nothing wrong in California. There's nothing wrong with the system. It's not just California. And again, those are only the numbers we know. When you leave a state and go to another state, is it your first order of business to make sure that the Secretary of State's office knows that you filed a change of address flag and you should be removed from the voter rolls? You're no longer eligible there. Now you move to the state of Florida and now you're eligible there, so you vote there. Please remove me from the voter rolls. Who knows anyone who has ever done that before? You haven't. You know nobody. It's not common practice. When you have a family member who dies, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, do you know anybody, or have you ever personally decided that it was your responsibility to call the supervisor of election or the Secretary of State or the county registrar to tell them that your beloved family member has passed away and should be removed from the voter rolls? Folks, that's how this stuff works out practically in the real world. The system lags. Why do you think Arizona has the problems they have with registration dates? And these have to be purged. Nothing's wrong, but Wisconsin still ends up removing over this many voters. Georgia winds up removing 100,000 records, which is nothing. As I've shown people who remember us doing this very same thing in Georgia, that is nothing compared to the real problem. And where the danger lies here is the disparity in these states. Nevada being a perfect example. The disparity in these states helps one party over the other. If one sought to exploit these, I don't even know what, vulnerabilities in the system, if one party sought to exploit them, one would have a disproportionate advantage in doing so. So even if both parties wanted to exploit vulnerabilities in the system, it still wouldn't be fair. Clark County is about 70%, and I use this example often because it's exemplary. Clark County is about 70% of the total statewide vote, but it's closer to 85% of the total dirty roll problem. Philadelphia, Allegheny County, there's just no way the rest of the state can keep up with them. They're large population centers, they have the dirtiest records, and as such, they have the most potential if they choose to exploit vulnerabilities. It's like that all over the country. And to pretend like this doesn't exist is very dishonest. It does. It's naive on the part of some to believe the dishonesty of others. It's naive on the part of, everyday people to believe the dishonesty of these people who supposedly are experts. I don't care who the AP goes and gets quotes for, PolitiFact goes and gets quotes for. Go to my alma mater. Michael McDonald, he loves to be the one they call. Michael McDonald could never come on this show. I offer him an invitation right now. He could never come on this show and go toe-to-toe with me on the ability to exploit the system. Never. I invite him to do so. Let's have a Gator versus Gator debate. He'd go down in flames. And he knows it. And it would take me all 30 to 60 seconds to do it. Because there are certain things that are real, damning, and indefensible. There would be no way to argue. There would be no way to take this position unless they appeal to your ignorance and naivete. That's why these lies are so troubling. Because that's what they seek to do. They hope you don't go out and find a podcast like mine where someone explains this to you. The idea that somebody's going to get a felony if they do it. Get the hell out of here. And pretending as if there are more instances of Republican versus Democratic, electioneering. I don't care. First of all, that says nothing about what the numbers say. What actually, the only telling thing is that we know from the numbers it favors one party disproportionately over the other. The only thing that tells you, if that stat is even true, and I'm not sure it's not, the only thing that would tell you, if you were using your brain, is that the justice system is just as corrupt as the election system. That one side gets prosecuted more than the other. And it's amazing to me, coming off the heels of what was a large, widespread indictment in Philadelphia, which spanned multiple years and multiple election cycles, going into 2020, that was major news, a major case being prosecuted by Bill Barr, and on the heels of that, they tell you it's not possible to use mail-in voting to stuff the ballot box. That's, folks, those are lies. I'm not telling you, again, I am not saying, one thing resulted in one outcome over the other. That would be for the Department of Justice to conclude. Somebody with investigative powers to conclude. State legislatures to hire teams who then have subpoena power to conclude. I'd be happy to join one of those teams. All we can do with the limited amount of resources we have are take subsamples of these particular groups, which is very costly. We told you, it costs 10 grand just to pull enough for Michigan to give you what we gave you on Michigan. And from there, extrapolate out to say, well, this was a random sample pulled off the voter file. Here's what we found out of this random sample. So if we were to use this to extrapolate for the rest of the population, the rest of the voter file, here is X number of estimated whatever. We can't tell you who they would have voted for or not. Not with certainty. Although, of course, if you follow my locals, you know I have my own views. I can't tell you for certainty which way it would have went, but I can tell you with certainty it absolutely happens. I can tell you with certainty that the changes we made before 2020 and appear to be attempting to adopt moving forward are leaving our systems vulnerable to exploitation, are putting the integrity in doubt. And no degree of shaming or censorship will ever change that. If we don't heed these warnings, it will lead to one side of the political spectrum coming to the conclusion that the system no longer works, and that is when all hell breaks loose. I'm not doing this to inflame anybody's personal, to inflame anything, the situation, someone's personal belief. I'm doing it as a warning. You can't stick your head in the sand. Try to avoid reality and hope that it just goes away. That's how Donald Trump came along. Because the political class did that for years, that's what led to Donald Trump. But there is nothing, what my point is, there's nothing past Donald Trump as far as political outcomes, political avenues. Once once that option has been exhausted in the minds of many Americans, they already went the electoral route. What do you think they're going to conclude now? And burying your head in the sand and pretending like that's not a possibility, that's crazy. And in fact, Americans think that that's crazy. You want to know how dangerous this is? This is how dangerous this is. 1 second. Let's pull this up. Here we go. Likelihood of... No, I'll pull it up, Laura, and you can whisper in my ear while I show them that. Go ahead. That's a really good point. Okay. Here is the more disturbing and potentially more dangerous element to this. What they never understood is that the country was failing before, and that all the time, and that systems within the country, within our our structure of government, were failing before, and that now that they tried that electoral route and it didn't work, they got a taste of what it would be like to run competently, to have their their government truly represent them. You take that away now again, and it's even potentially more volatile of a situation. It's like, yeah, having something ripped out of your hands. When you were told this system works for you, and then the system doesn't, and then they steal it out of your hands again. They take it from you. That is dangerous. No self-governing society can survive with certain elements of that society believing that the system doesn't work for them. And this is, honestly, they may find in the future, and Laura's right, they may find in the future this was a monumental mistake that they did this, because they should have just let it play out, and they should have just fought the war of ideas. Otherwise, as you find here, as most Americans believe, they're going to wind up fighting another one. Doesn't anyone want to put the damn fire out? Doesn't anybody want to put the fire out before it comes to something horrible? And there is this element within, and you can see this here. How likely is it the United States of America is headed for another civil war, widespread political violence that leads to significant division? We finally found something where people have widespread bipartisan agreement outside of, honestly, election reforms do. They do. The media gives a false impression that there are certain people who will be disenfranchised by election reforms and they don't support it. That's absolutely not true. That's just absolutely not true. Corporate white liberal America pretends to speak for all of these groups of people in America who absolutely agree with their suburban and rural brethren. They are creating a division that does not exist. And it's going to lead us to this, according to, geez, folks, it's almost 6 in 10. It's about 6 in 10 Americans who think it's likely, at least somewhat likely, if not very likely. We're going to be killing each other soon. Doesn't anyone want to put that fire out? I just can't believe the amount of irresponsibility, recklessness that we deal with in this industry, to the point where they can't even admit to you that these things are real. Go report them to Twitter. He deceptively edited something. I don't know exactly what I'm looking at, but I'm sure he deceptively edited it. Outrageous. That is real. And the worst part about it is, everyone who has that tool in my industry, they know it is. And not one single person had the courage to come forward and say he's telling the truth. Not one single person. When that is among the most used voter file vendor in the damn country. It's disgusting. Which leads me right before the break to this idea I have. Look at the PBS NBC Marist poll out today, or PBS NPR Marist poll out today. Joe Biden's at 51% disapprove, 43% approve in a D plus 17 sample. YouGov was D plus 14 the other day. These are the gimmicks they are playing in an attempt to keep Joe Biden from a complete free fall into the 30s. These weights don't exist in reality. And I'm wondering on what can be done about this outside of the Public Polling Project doing what we do and offering a more transparent and a more accurate alternative to this nonsense. And it dawned on me. And I was talking the other day to somebody about this. There are a few of us who, at least I, not only have a decent track record, but that I trust. And if APOR, Jim Lee from Susquehanna, he attempted to appeal to them. Maybe they wanted to be cautious. And they didn't want to say anything before the election. But after the election, they did nothing. They did nothing but attempt again to whitewash what was the worst performance since Truman Dewey. And it was. If not for them using the results of the people they love to smear to make their work look better. Take out all the people that they love to smear and just run a complete new report, including only the results, only the products of those that are supposedly credible. And you will see that they were the worst polling results since Truman Dewey. And instead of having a come to Jesus, even mea culpa, because honestly, they owe the rest of us an apology. But instead of doing that, they attempted to use those they smear to whitewash how bad it really was. So Jim, I'm afraid, my friend, APOR is not going to be any help in this field. So I think that honestly, we might have to start our own damn public opinion association. Public Opinion Research Association. One where it's not a paper tiger. One that isn't corrupted by ideology. And one that does speak up in the face of what is clear manipulation of data in an attempt to make one party's life easier. That is not what this industry was birthed to do. That is not George Gallup's vision. One that speaks up when it happens because it puts the industry first. Because the credibility of the industry is more important than the ideology. Because the industry still does put truth up on a pedestal. Because truth is still paramount. Not that people don't make mistakes, and not that the overall body of work or individual pollsters aren't going to make mistakes. But that's not what's happening here. If I open up this voter file right now, the one I just showed you, and I run it, it would take a while because if you're going to run every single record, it'd probably take about 30 minutes. If I let the machine learning model spin around, grab up every single party registration on the voter file nationally, every single state, grab them up and add them together, infer in states that we don't know, Virginia, Wisconsin, areas like that, infer them all. If we were to combine the inference with the known registrations, we're going to get maybe D plus 4. And that is being generous to Democrats because we know the duplicate records are impacting that. We know that when we become more strict with the parameters of the modeling, it gets less democratic. Which is why when we do the public polling project and I come back after my weights are put in, put in to effect, and I see that it's maybe, D plus 2, D plus 3, D plus 4. I feel perfectly comfortable with that. Because I know there's never existed a D plus 17 electorate in recent history, and I'm yet to see one. The voter file does not show that that's even possible. Unless a ton of Republicans just stayed home. D plus 8, sure. D plus 10 even. We're stretching it. But maybe. In a really bad year for Republicans. But in a typical national mode? No. No way. Between those inferences, you're going to get maybe 36, 37% Democrat, maybe 33 to 34% Republican, and the rest independent third party. Or none's third party. I'm telling you, it's D2 to D4. Anything else outside of that is just wishful thinking, is a disgusting response. And if that was your data, then you have a real problem with your collection mode. And that is a serious problem with response bias. And that's something you got to figure out, which is maybe why you suck every election cycle. I mean, really. I mean, there's no other alternative. Taking a 2-minute break. We'll be back in a hot minute. Real quick before I go, though. Follow me on Getter, @PeoplesPundit. Follow me on Twitter, @Peoples_Pundit. And of course, if you want to be, and join the lovely Laura, @Laura Barris on Getter. And if you want to be part of our Laura and I's Locals community, peoplespundit.locals.com. Extreme explosive growth. Love you guys for it. We're going to have, immediately following today's show, it'll maybe take me a few minutes just to get it set up. Everybody listening, pay attention. We're going right to live on Locals right after the show for a brief time. And we're going to discuss the questionnaire because I really do think we're going to hit this target. I was like really confident. Got a boost from War Room. Thanks to the guys out there for letting us do that shout out. We got a boost from Robert. As always, in the middle of a trial, still finds the time to support his friends. I got to tell you, for those of you who don't know Robert in person, okay, and what kind of guy he is in real life, because he's a bulldog, all right? He will go to the end of the earth for somebody. I'm telling you right now, he was born to be a defense attorney. He was, right, Laura? He was born to be a defense attorney because for his friends, for his even his clients, his family, he will go to the end of the earth. Even in the middle of a trial, the guy still finds the time to send a tweet like that, you know? All right, so what else am I missing? And, of course, as always, thank everybody for their support, sharing. And even if you didn't contribute, you just shared. Oh, a lot of new donors. If you are out there, don't forget, leave us a comment. We want to know your opinion on what we're going to ask. And we'll talk about the questionnaire on Locals. What am I missing, Laura? Oh, yeah, right. This Wednesday, we have Patrick Witt. Georgia 10 is a very crowded district. We've had Mike Collins on. We're going to have Patrick Witt on to talk as well on Wednesday. And what am I missing here? And we'll have Joe Kent on Friday. Thank you, Laura. I knew I was missing somebody. And we'll be back in 2 minutes. With that, we'll do a quick Q&A. We'll jump into the Q&A. I know there's something else that I am forgetting, but I will throw it in and mix it in somehow. And we'll do a Q&A when we come back. And then we'll bring on Don, do some more Q&A. You know the deal. See you in a few minutes.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit. My chest beats its restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right. Check, 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 check. I know. I was making a last-ditch effort to get the other one to work. All right. Do it. Laura's giving me a nice pep talk over here. All right. I think the only way, Laura, is if I was to bring you on. I'm serious, and I think that's ultimately the problem. You'll have the camera shoot up at this guy? All right. Let's see. All right. Go ahead. Try it. Yeah, I can. I just got to bring her on with me, which would be, you know what? Let me give you a second. Hold on. Let's see if I can. Bear with me 1 second, guys, and then you'll be able to hear her talking. Yeah, let's see. All right, give me a check, Laura.
Check 1, 2.
There you are. You guys can hear her now, I think, right? Go ahead, do it again, Laura.
Hello. How
Yeah,
are you?
people can hear you now.
Cool
Kind of,
beans.
right. Just
Yay.
let them confirm it in the box.
You will never see my face, Brenda. No.
But Brenda, you can hear her, right, Brenda? Right? Is that a yes?
I see one yes.
Okay. All right. So that's great. Now you can go ahead and ask questions.
Cool beans.
Yeah, I see it on the live output, so you got to be there.
I am here.
All right. Hit me.
I'll stop myself. All right. Jury Spider wants to know, in November 2020, the state of California rejected 0.6% of signatures to get a Democrat into power. In March/April 2020, the state of California rejected 20% of signatures to block the recall election of a Democrat. And
That's
people think the game isn't rigged. Vote and make it hard for them to cheat. But
Yeah, I mean, this is what I would say to people, because I don't want you to think that the system is rigged, because I am also of the mind, and I really do believe this, that if everybody who didn't support that worldview really did vote, then in many cases it wouldn't matter the games they played. All right, the numbers would be overwhelming. So, for instance, in Georgia, in the recalls and the specials in January 5th, everybody was complaining that it was just rigged, and they just were going to take it anyway, and blah 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 blah. The truth is, if Republicans weren't depressed and would have voted in central Georgia and southern Georgia, the one area where Trump didn't go, where Trump did go in northern Georgia, Republicans voted. In the areas he did not go to, because the Purdue campaign was dumb. Purdue and McConnell wing was stupid. They were stupid. That vote was depressed. And I'm telling you anyway, Democrats didn't win those elections. They weren't robbed, even if there was something untoward going on. Republicans lost them by not going out and voting. The very concept of voter fraud helps Democrats because it depresses Republicans and it makes them think that they can't overcome it. No matter what, that they're just going to win and they're going to take the vote away from you. That's exactly what they want Republicans to believe. Okay? And not just Republicans, other Americans. There are millions and millions and millions of people that Donald Trump brought back into the political process that hadn't voted for many years or any at all. And they would love for those people to conclude that them coming back and participating in the system was a waste of their time. They would love that. They would love it.
Ready?
And by the way, let me just quickly say, Laura,
Sorry.
because of this fool on Twitter who wrote an article, a never Trumper, by the way, in the Believe the Daily Beast, saying that, why isn't anybody courting us never Trumpers? We're the most important swing voters, or among the most important. First of all, you're not a swing vote. That's number one. You're a Democrat. You always have been a Democrat. You just were latched on to the Bush administration like a freaking remora, like a leech, because you had no other home, because nobody else wanted you. All right? You don't make up a significant part of the population at all. You are not the reason for any of the swing against Donald Trump in the suburbs since the era of Mitt Romney. My very educated and well-informed viewers who have been watching for a long time know we've gone over this in many different areas. Immigration, education, right? And indoctrination, I should say, and migration are the reasons for those swings in those areas. The suburbs in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, do not look the way they looked 10 years ago. The suburbs in I can go down the line. Loudoun County, the Atlanta metro area, Phoenix, Arizona. I just keep going. That is not because the very same voters who are mostly never Trump suburban women moved against Donald Trump. That's ridiculous. It's a lie. And they need you to believe that lie in order for their argument to even work. The large swing vote, especially when it comes to the Electoral College, both in numbers and in Electoral College representation, is the Obama-Trump working coalition. And they dwarf the Bill Kristol and Never Trump movement. They dwarf them. The biggest mistake Republicans could make is to waste their time, pandering to 2% while they scare away 10 million. And it's not even 2%. We're talking about a couple thousand people here and there sprinkled around, mostly in purplish to leaning blue states, if not blue states. Oh, you think if Mitt Romney was the nominee, he would have done any better in Oakland County, Michigan? You're stupid. If you think that's the case, you're stupid. Then why didn't Paul Young rout Alyssa Slotkin over there? Right? All that would have happened is you would have chased away millions and millions and millions of other voters who call counties like Macomb home, Monroe home, down the line. I can keep going. 31 in Iowa alone. So if you want to keep playing this count, it's paltry compared to the working coalition, which, by the way, when you add the new racial demographics from 2020 to 16, is the growing coalition. My point is, trade Bill Kristol for the new arrival from Venezuela. Trade Bill Kristol from the new arrival or the newly naturalized Cuban citizen. Trade Bill Kristol for Woods County, Ohio. Don't think 2020 was some lesson here. There was 2020 was an anomaly. We all know why. Myriad reasons. I'm not going to go back into it. 2020 is one election where 4 battleground states all voted for the loser for the first time ever since the history of popular voting began. The first ever in 5 decades where Juneau County did not predict the winner of the state. Almost 5 decades. The first ever where the one who won the 19 pivot counties which are bellwethers, lost. It's an anomaly. It is not going to be a rule. Especially if you get rid of this garbage vulnerability that you created by allowing Mark Zuckerberg to bribe election officials into changing our rules.
All right, Jesse Martin, he wants to know, betting odd for the recall have shifted in favor of Newsom even more. Do you know the reason why? What has happened?
Yeah, polls are showing that keeping him has a slight edge. And I told you guys when we did our polling, I can actually see that in the numbers myself, that it could be like either really, really close, or Newsom maybe could edge it out, or he could win by 8 or 10 points. I mean, it really does depend on who votes. I will say this, though. Go and look at the political data tracker of who is returning these ballots. Our poll, which was close, was 55% white. UC Berkeley was 66% white, I think, roughly there. And I was really skeptical on how they could have even come up with those numbers. However, right now, whites are 69% of all return ballots. 18 to 29, I think, 18 to 30, something like that, about 10%. I'm looking more at age, and I'm looking more at race than I am about who returns those ballots. The reason why? Because there were a ton of Democrats, 16% in our poll, who are going to vote to replace him. So I still think that there could be a pretty big polling error. Absolutely. But that's why. The polls have shown, there was I think it was Change.org, which doesn't have a great record. But Change.org showed a double-digit lead for Newsom to remain. And then Robert from Trafalgar, he had +8. And I think that would probably be more in the realm of possible. I don't think we're going to see a double-digit survival here by Newsom. Folks, Newsom should survive this recall by 30 points. So they're going to try to spin this, even if he holds on, they're going to try to spin this into something good. This should be a runaway easy win for Newsom. And if it's not, I mean, that in California shifts 20 points, you better look to Virginia. Even 15 points, Laura.
Yeah, speaking of Newsom, though, they want to know, the polling was as low as 41% disapproval around 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now, after a recent poll, they have him at 43%. What are we getting? He should have dropped after Afghanistan. That was Biden. Sorry, that was Biden. I read the wrong question.
I mean, like I was saying before, no, that's also a good point. 41 was Suffolk, USA Today, and now the 43 today is PBS, NPR, and Marist. Again, Marist is one of the worst polls, but they had Trump winning by almost exactly the margin he won Florida by, and then they herded and they put Biden ahead, and of course we all know how that worked out. That was like a 6 or 8 point miss or something. But yeah, I mean, generally what we're seeing them do is they're finding independents now, support for Joe Biden in the 30s, and they're playing all of these games to be able to keep him from falling into the 30s. And it's not only, like I told Steve Bannon on War Room, it's not when you weight the electorate like this, and we don't wait for party. If you aren't waiting properly for the other demographics, you're going to find a ridiculous partisan split. But if you do everything else right, you shouldn't have to wait for party. And what they're doing is overrepresenting liberal groups, and they don't even have to wait for party to balloon it out. Because if you overrepresent liberal groups, then you're going to make the DRI split more favorable to Democrats anyway, because adjusting one weight impacts the weight of the representation of others. So you could wait for age, and it will impact the DRI split, the Democrat, Republican, Independent split. So unless you're intentionally trying to wait for age and holding the DRI split, you can do that too, but you shouldn't. I'm a fluid waiter. I'm not a static waiter. So when I change one weight, it influences the weights of others, as it should be. All right, and if you do that correctly, then you don't have to touch party. But I don't know what they're doing. I'm not behind the scenes, but they're either influencing it just with party, or they're in most cases, what it looks like to me is that they're weighting in favor of liberal groups, which changes that split. Folks, 17 points, a partisan split, 17 points, that is indefensible. Even the 13.1 from The Economist YouGov, indefensible. And what that does is not only keep his approval rating from collapsing, but it keeps his disapproval rating from ballooning. And that is that's the game they're playing. And don't believe it for a second, is what I'm saying. Because if you were to give me the same data set that Maris got and weighted, he'd be in the 30s. Laura, he'd probably be around, with that Maris number, 38, 39. And his disapproval would be probably 55, somewhere around there. You know, you know how we do it. I mean, you see me do it all the time. You're always watching over my shoulder. If he had the numbers, our independent was 41. So, I mean, you get, like USA Today, 32. I mean, he's going to fall. I mean, he's going to fall like a rock. And you do see slippage among Democrats. In the 3 polls that came out this week, Republican support cut in half. Same thing with ours. From the mid-teens now to the single digits. Single digits. And that is close to, you would expect, remember this, guys, you would expect partisans to show you first, all right, what is going to happen, and then the independents will follow. There's still the proxy. Steve's right to say that. But what I mean is, if there are 15% Republicans who support Joe Biden, who approve of Joe Biden, let's say they were 15% the month before, then when you go to poll again, you'll see the partisan shift quicker than you will see, like, what do we have? We got about 8%. Last month, it was in the teens. You'll see them shift quicker than independents, who we found at 39.3, 42%. All right? So next month, you'll see independents fall more if you don't see partisan ticking up a little bit. And we even had 9.3% of Democrats who disapproved this month, which means 88.6% did approve in some way, shape, or form. That's down from, I don't remember last month, but it was 90s plus. So you'll see those partisans start to move too. And I think if you were to give, like I said, I think YouGov had Republican approval of like 5%. It was bad. And if that's the case, and the independents are in the 30s, then Joe Biden is not at 46, 47%. I mean, it's just not unless you're accounting for that by overly representing Democratic groups, and that's what's going to give you the D13s to 17s. But that's not reality. Those are gimmicks. Those are games. The pollsters are playing to make Joe Biden look better. Those are games. And they know it. And they know it. They know it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst. Don't ever forget that. They freaking know it.
True story. All right, Sandy Paws. What does Rich think is the realistic margin of fraud in elections nowadays? Now that safeguards have been thrown out, assuming there is even a margin of fraud anymore.
That's a great point. I remember when Robert Cahaley from Trafalgar, before the election, and I had like Trump pulling ahead in Pennsylvania, and I remember he said he's going to need to win that state by 4 points, because they got fraud to a science, and I'm thinking to myself, that sounds like a lot. Like 2 points I can understand, but that sounds like a lot. And the truth is, if you just look at the work that I've done in Michigan and in Georgia, and you've seen Look Ahead America do, in other states, you're talking about several points here. You are talking about anywhere between 2 to 4 plus points. That's previously thought to have been not possible, but because of everything I just showed, remember the first segment I just showed you guys, California excluding deceased and movers. Let me bring this back up just so you guys can see this. 1 sec. Come on. All right. So look at the difference between state summary and look at the difference between unique individuals. And we went over and showed you how much it accounted for the deceased, how much accounted for recent movers. And my point is, years ago, because we didn't send them out unsolicited, because it was very, the verification procedures were different, definitely more strict, it really wasn't possible to exploit that entire disparity. But now it's easier to exploit a much larger share of that disparity. And my point being, I think what Robert was saying was was valid. I really sadly believe that you got to win by quite a bit to make sure, if some electioneering fraud didn't occur, that you could get away with it. Are you there, Laura? Oh, they can't hear you unless I take you off the thing.
No,
Sorry, now they can hear you. Now they can.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I kind of muted myself because of Roro.
Screaming?
No, playing interesting toys and making cute giggles. So Real Jam wants to know, what are your thoughts on William McKinley? Why doesn't the GOP look at McKinley's legacy? Do they not remember that the GOP used to be a Midwest tariff party of
Yeah.
ethnic Catholics?
Yeah. No, I don't think they know who they are anymore. And there are things
don't think
about
they knew
William McKinley I
themselves.
would I don't like. What did
Yeah.
they installed, the guilds installed McKinley to keep Roosevelt away from the presidency. Teddy Roosevelt. Franklin Delano Roosevelt is a product of fake history. All right, his success is a product of fake history. Even in World War II, we likely could have lost that war if he didn't just have good people surrounding him. Like today, if we were as prepared for a war like that, with a president like FDR, we would lose, because our generals and our admirals, they're jokes of shadows of the men who came before them. Teddy Roosevelt was the real deal, and McKinley. I do see what you're saying, though, as far as he was still part of the Republican America First, and Donald Trump did not make that up. I mean, that was the Republican slogan for many years. Then they meant American industry first, American workers first, American markets first, American, American goods basically first. I don't think they know who they are anymore. I don't. I really don't know that they know where they came from. I sadly think that the Trump era taught us that. This idea, look, I mean, guys, look before Trump, look who populated a Fox News Brett Baer special report, panel. That's who they had being the voices of Republicans. I mean, it's a total joke. And just because, Trump routed them, I think in order to completely restore the Republican identity, and which will effectively allow them to explain to the American people who they are, you need to keep going. You can see this article, like I said, in the Daily Beast today. These guys are not gone yet. I mean, the neocons and the never Trumps and they're fake Republicans. They're not gone yet. And they have to be excised like a tumor and replaced with healthy tissue. Okay? I don't know how else to put this. They're going to try to take the party back. And that's why we want to have people like Joe Kent on next Friday again. We had him on before, because his race, against like Butler out there in Washington's 3rd, is a perfect example of this fight that is going. She's not gone. You know what I mean? She's, the Republican leadership, raising money for the incumbent, by the way, is still going to keep pushing and pushing, even though Kevin McCarthy knows damn well that is not what the Trump voter wants. It's going to take the fights that people like Joe Kent are waging right now to put a nail in their coffin, to send them on their way, and to show them that, believe me, I will tell you this, the amount of people, the percentage of people, or just raw numbers, that you're going to lose by kicking out people like them, you're going to make up tenfold by being able to convince, the American voter that this is the party you are now, and you'll reap the rewards at a breakneck pace. I mean, but this has to be done. This has to continue.
True.
Oh, let's get one more before I bring on
Yep.
Don. It's 12:32.
Perfect. Lamp Crow wants to know, how long is the delay for things like you're saying to reach into Beltway conventional wisdom? As in, how long until the DC consultants stop thinking they need to get back the suburbs?
Yeah, I think that honestly, it takes a really long time for what the hell, is there somebody out there right now? What's going on out there? I think it takes a really long time, 2 to 4 years. So they lag a cycle or two at the least. Conventional wisdom does. Let me give you a perfect example, okay? Hillsborough County, Florida, used to be thought of as the bellwether for the state. Whoever wins Hillsborough wins the state. If you carry Hillsborough County, you carry the state. And in 2012, they continued with that mantra, even though that was not true back then. And yes, Obama did carry Hillsborough, but he could have easily have carried that state by that margin or even a little bit greater if Mitt Romney would have done better in Pinellas and Monroe and Lee, on and on and on and on. All right? So my point is, they are always that far behind. And it didn't take them, it took them too late. By the time 18 rolled around, they realized that Pinellas was a better bellwether. By that time, Pinellas had started to get a little bit more Democratic. And they didn't realize that DeSantis could lose Pinellas County and still carry the state. Ditto Donald Trump could lose Pinellas, which ultimately was about tied. So out of 500,000 votes, Joe Biden won 200 more votes in Pinellas County than Donald Trump. Yet he went down in a blaze of glory. He was defeated in Florida like nobody, no president has ever been defeated. That's another first for the 2020 election that people like the neocons and the never-Trumpers want you to use as some kind of like gauge and bellwether and new conventional. They are always way behind, at least 2 to 4, if not more, cycles behind what is real and what is true. And I will never forget, in 2016, the exit polls came in, our modeling on how we had the election going, and how the PPD election projection model would move throughout the night. Our modeling was not focused on Hillsborough at all. Now, if there was a big blowout in Hillsborough, then you would see that somebody could still carry Pinellas and lose the state. But the bottom line was that didn't happen. And all throughout the day, we could see the numbers of how many partisans had voted in these different counties. The exit polls came in, and Fat Frank Luntz and the rest of those idiots got on Twitter and started screaming about how, let me just be clear, Hillary Clinton is the next president. All right, and I'm like, dude, what are you basing that on? And you said, Florida is gone. Florida is gone. Okay, Fat Frank Luntz. We'll see about that. Because I'm looking at my modeling. I know I'm right and you are wrong. And Donald Trump is going to carry Pinellas by a margin that is going to swamp Hillsborough anyway. So it won't matter. All right? So, and that was a big fight all day long. Laura, I'm sure you remember. All day long. And
It was
in the end,
hysterical.
and it was hysterical. And in the end, I was right. They were wrong. So sorry. Sing me another song. All
My
right?
favorite was when he had to admit you were right.
But they didn't admit it
No,
for
frankly.
years
Yeah.
that they were wrong about the bellwethers. And they move and they
Oh,
change,
yes.
especially in a
Yes.
state that is that dynamic as Florida. But let me go ahead now, unmute him. Is there, like, what's going on over here? I hear the rumbling of somebody's thing and it's annoying me. All right, let me go ahead and bring on my friend Don. All right.
John! Woo woo!
Can everybody hear Don? Let's get a check 1, check 2.
Hello.
Yes, we can.
How you doing?
Doing my friend, as always, living the dream. Welcome back to Inside the Numbers, as always. And
Thanks for having me.
can you hear Laura?
I can.
Okay.
Yep.
And Laura, just give me a little check. Make sure everybody else can hear you still. No, I think we can hear you, but nobody else can. So I'm going to have to add you to this. No, but you know what? I'm figuring this out, which is really cool. All right, now give me a check, Laura. There it is. Now they will be able to hear you after I do
Oh,
this.
that
Go.
was so cool. His thing slide right in.
Yep, that's it. All right, we're good to go.
Cool beans.
So, Don, let me just, before we get into some Q&As again, you're a Florida guy. I'm sure what I just said you remember, right? Because I'm like, Don, it's Pinellas this time. It's Pinellas. That is what's going to tell us who wins the state. And I had to deal with all those idiots as always, right? And we know from Florida has changed in a while. Hillsborough County was the bellwether during the Bush years, and that is how long it took for them to get on, to get current. And I can't even say to get current, because they weren't. By the time they realized the value of Pinellas, they're behind on Pinellas. So they don't realize you can actually lose. A Republican can lose Pinellas and still win the state now. I mean, because we have seen, and I always Collier County. I always cannot forget the margins in Collier County have gotten so big for Republicans now, which is Florida's different. Republicans don't lose all the big population centers in Florida like they do around other battleground states. Collier County, a lot of votes out of there, Don. Lee County, a lot of votes in Lee County, Don. And even the areas in Pinellas where they do well, there are a lot of votes. So Joe Biden was supposed to carry Pinellas County, according to Dave Wasserman and company. He was going to carry Pinellas County by like double digits. You remember that?
Yeah.
That didn't happen, dude. He barely farted it out. He had a bunch of harvesters run over 200 more ballots so they could eke in the lead. He was going down.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man.
There's also been the shift on the I-4 corridor, which was always a big thing when we moved here. And so there's been a big shift in that as well. So, and that's just the way it is. Look at the influx of people coming into Florida. I mean, where do they move? I mean, that's going to be at the end of the day what really changes the dynamics. So you're right. Pinellas is huge right now. I-4, even people talk about the villages, right? So they think this is just it's all conservatives, hardcore conservatives. Maybe there was a time when that was more true than it is today, but even that has shifted. A lot of people have retired, come into that community that weren't Trump supporters. So, but that's just the dynamics of it. And that's why the stuff that you guys do is so important to keep up with how that shifts, because it's really important to know that.
Yeah, and Lee County, that's a really good point. Where the villages are, that was not that pro-Trump this time around, as much as we had seen it, even 4 years prior. And I'm not, saying Democrats are going to be particularly competitive there anytime soon, but the 75-25 split is not going to be the case anymore over there. That's just not going to happen. And the ability to win Monroe by a decent margin, and then this just gangbuster surge Donald Trump did in southern Florida. Folks, he netted 200,000+ more votes out of a Democrat region of the state. I don't think everybody appreciates what I'm saying here. The closest a Republican came to winning Miami-Dade County was George W. Bush in 2004. It was 6 points. Don, it was almost 20 points whiter back then. I mean, this is what people aren't getting. So when you see like the fat Frank Lunces attack Rasmussen on Twitter, right, and go after him over like, well, it couldn't have done that much better with minorities. Sure, Frank, you can keep citing your exit polls, or we can look at the actual voting results. We have actual data now. It's not like you have to rely on exit polls anymore, which are notoriously wrong. But I got to bring up. I know you were talking to Mark Geis the interview aired last night. I got to bring up this thing again with Afghanistan, and I had to say that it burns people like you and I. We're both veterans, and it burns us, and it makes the Never Trumpers rethink their position. But in truth, that's not really what brought Joe Biden down here. And you see this new NPR poll this morning. This is devastating. They had to make it D+17 to keep the guy from falling into the 30s, Don. And you know it. I know it. This is not just Afghanistan, but Afghanistan was like the straw that broke the camel's back. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, and I think I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on what you think on this, but I don't think we've seen yet the effects of Afghanistan.
Totally?
At least
No.
Not totally. Not even. I don't even think close. I think we're just starting to see that. You had mentioned it. I remember when you did the polling on the one key issue that he had in his favor, and that was the COVID stuff, right? So he was really positive on COVID, and because somehow people thought he was magically he kept saying he was gonna attack and shut down the virus, and Yeah, it's not how it worked out, is it? So now that he lost that, we were already seeing that decline, and you were already showing that before what we've seen here in Afghanistan. So I think going forward, I think we're gonna see huge swings here. And just one thing, just to say this. The Frank Luntzes and all these people that look at Chris Steyerwalt out there now too. As soon as they lost their Fox gig, now look at them all. They're all never Trumpers. They're fighting for their own credibility, and it's actually kind of amusing to watch.
Can we tell that guy to get the hell lost? That's really annoying every time he makes a pass behind me. Can somebody tell him to get lost, please?
Yeah, sure.
This is
I'll be
annoying.
right
I'm
on that
serious.
one.
God,
He's doing his job.
Can you guys hear it or no? You guys can hear it, right? I'm sure. Or no?
No.
Can you, Don? You'd be able to if everyone else can. Can you hear it or no?
I can't.
Okay, thank God. All right, so all right then. We'll just move on. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Don. They bet wrongly, and Fox News lost half their audience. And now they're the ones who their heads have to roll over it, right? Whose heads are going to roll? There you are, because they were the ones who told Fox. They were supposed to be their data gurus, and they're the ones who told Fox management, Fox executives, that the safe bet is against the Trump movement, and that we need to move back toward George Bush, Mitt Romney, and that he's going to get killed in a rout. His voters are going to be shamed and basically marginalized.
Yep.
You know, right? Right, Don? And
Yep.
that is not what happened. So you have to have somebody's got to roll, and it's them. And now they're going to pivot. You know who makes me really sick? Meghan McCain. Okay?
Oh, God.
She makes me sick to my stomach. To pretend now as if, this was like not on her, and she's just so heartbroken over how bad Joe Biden is. And look, we all know what happened here. And I'm glad you're on with me because you're not afraid of this either. We got to stop being afraid to touch third rails because it prevents debate that needs to happen, right?
Yep.
So, Meghan McCain, let's be real. Did Joe Biden really reflect her ideology, or at least the ideology that she publicly espoused she believed in? Did he really reflect the ideology, or was she just really upset that Donald Trump attacked her daddy and made fun of her daddy? I mean, this is the maturity level we have to deal with, Don. And now I'm just for one. I'm with Kurt 100%. I'm not going to let her or anybody else try to pull off the act that they're trying to pull off now. You traded the lives of those people for your own personal vendetta. That's what you did, Meghan.
Yep. She's made a whole entire career out of just being the daughter of John McCain. I mean,
unearned.
Unearned. No accomplishments. It's like the
She's
Chelsea
done
Clinton
nothing.
thing. It's like the Chelsea Clinton thing when she got the big TV deal, right? $1 million deal. And
Amen.
they did like 2 shows with her, and they were like, "Yeah, we're never putting you on the air again." But Meghan lives on. But I think really, if you want to look at it this way, here's how I look at the whole Meghan McCain and her mom, who's now out here. Oh, look at Kamala Harris putting, whatever. And,
because she really let me just jump in real quick and I'll let you finish. She really disgraces the memory, her own memory. This is somebody who did all of this work against sex trafficking and immigration and illegal immigration. So instead, because they made fun of your hubby? Because he made fun of your hubby? You put all these girls at risk?
Yep. But
make
look
me
at it,
sick. You make me sick.
Look at it from the other side, too. So here you've got the left who hated John McCain. They would bring him on and they would use him as the useful idiot. They would use him to be the reasonable Republican. See, even John McCain doesn't agree with Rich and Don, whatever. They would just use him, but they hated him until he went never Trump. And then they loved him. Boy, John, look at these people and the way they idolize him, and oh my God, John McCain, they always hated him. So what it shows is leftists will use people when they need to. They will throw them away just as quick. And it doesn't matter how entrenched you are. I just got done doing a pre-tape for tomorrow with Gloria Romero. So she former head of the
Great
DNC in California, and boy, you want to see somebody getting some hate now. And they loved her. She ran the Democratic Party in California for a number of years. Former senator.
Yeah, she was the majority leader.
Now she endorses Larry Elder, and they've always hated her. I always bring that up about the Betsy Ross flag, right? Nobody ever thought the Betsy Ross flag was racist until one tweet by Colin Kaepernick, and then we all knew it was racist, and we always knew it. This is, I mean, that's leftists. That's what they do.
Yeah, Don, you just mentioned another example. Look at Glenn Greenwald yesterday. Look what they did to
Mhm.
Glenn Greenwald. Chelsea
Mhm.
Manning comes out, just first of all, nobody would have known
Bradley.
that Glenn Greenwald donated to Manning, right? Yeah, I'm not going to indulge in that delusion. But look, maybe it's because, I mean, I don't understand. So wait a minute. Now you're like, concerned over someone's mental health history. It wasn't clear to you before there was a mental health problem there? I mean, are you serious? But in any event, nobody would have known that Glenn gave Manning $10,000 to support whatever during the suicidal ideation, whatever it may be. All right. Nobody would have known because he didn't use it to virtue signal until, because I don't think Manning came up with this. But I don't think it was. So I think somebody put Manning up to do this. I really do. Maybe not. Maybe just broke one day. I don't know, Don. But the bottom line is, now we only know of it because of the public smear and the public attack, and it's all of a sudden. Yeah, for years I've thought like this. And then Glenn, he said something that I think is really important. That there are a lot of people on the left who mistake, like they think that it's the same thing, that your political alliance is a friendship, right? So they don't really know what a friend is.
Right.
And if you like, oh, he's my friend, she's my friend, I may disagree with them. And when I read that tweet that he put out, what immediately jumped out at me is that he's 100% correct. We can even prove it to be true in polling. We're not the only ones. Gallup, Pew did more than we did on this, where they're much more likely to, the bottom line is, Don, they are much more likely to disavow a friend over a political disagreement, to break or ruin a friendship with a person who's a friend or family member, to unfollow you or unfriend you on social media. I mean, they don't know how to separate a political disagreement from a friendship, or in this case, an alliance with a friendship. And if you go against that alliance, if you threaten that alliance, then all of a sudden they're not your friend anymore. Don, this is not normal.
I think what I've learned in my political career is there is no separation because there is no friendship. This is, I mean, and I'm serious about this.
Yeah.
For leftists, I think everything is seen through the political eye. So it's not whether you're my friend or even relative when it comes to leftists. I don't think there is that kind of emotion or feelings or connection with people. One other example. So Manning, he was the media darling, right? So all of a sudden he's standing on the ledge of a building because nobody supports him because they just dumped him and they said, yeah, we got somebody better than you.
Him to the,
Sandra Fluck. Everybody remembers Sandra Fluck.
Glenn Greenwald did not drag his public mental health in the mud. That was public record. NBC News reported he was about to leap off a building. Come on, get out. These smears are just way over the top. Okay, sorry, Sandra Fluck. Yeah.
The Sandra Fluck thing. So so over contraceptives and all that stuff, and they just pumped her up, and she's on the phone with Nancy Pelosi every night.
Yeah.
Until she decided to run. And then she said, well, hey, you guys got to support me. I'm like a rock star now, and I want to get into be a politician. They dumped her so fast, and she's gone. Look at Monica Lewinsky. You could go on and on and on. So they don't have those kind of connections. I think that most people do. For me, a friend is a friend. And if, they tweet something bad and I don't like it, I just don't like it. They're still my friend. I mean, they could even vote be never Trump. They're still my friend. So I have a different connection with those people, I think, than they do on the left.
Sadly, and Laura could vouch for this, sadly, one of the oldest friendships I've had is has been ruined by politics.
Dissolved.
And not that we ever had arguments, not that we've
Nothing
ever been
mean was
opposing
said.
interests. Nothing mean was said. Just simply the fact that I am who I am. That's it.
Yep.
How old am I now? 35 years down the drain. just like that.
But I don't think the Democratic leaders have that emotional concept, though,
I
of
think that's what
connection.
Don means, and I
Yeah,
think
I
that's what
agree
Don
with
means.
Don. Like,
And
I
now
don't.
it's trickling
It's not.
down, Laura.
Yeah. Well, because they're. What do? You what is it called? Look up to the people that are leading you, right?
Yeah,
So you want to mimic that behavior. So if
yeah,
you are too emotional, then you can't be like me. So therefore, you don't fit in. And everything about the Democratic Party is you need to fit in. You need to fit this mold. You need to be that individual in order to be in the cool group. Otherwise, they'll throw you to wolves so quick.
and also too, Laura. I think that a big part, and I don't want to sound like a Bible thumper here, but I am just saying that I think a big part of that is the evolution of the role that religion plays in the lives of different generations. I'm not going to cite his name or get into it. I'm not going to do that. But look at the difference between him and the family he has. I'm just going to say him. Look at the difference between him and his parents. Devoted Catholics, right? Democrats, been liberal forever, but more definitely not. I wouldn't say liberal. Democrats, but more definitely the old school Democrat, Don, right? The ethnic Catholic Democrat back in the day, versus now where he really doesn't believe, I don't think, in anything, So it's like, what filled the void when there is, your ideology fills the void, is my point. And that is now your moral compass. So
That
if
is their
somebody
religion.
that is your religion. So if somebody disagrees with you, they're no longer someone who just disagrees. They're bad people. And Laura, you know this, and I know this. I've had. I'm not gonna mention the name either, but Laura, again, vouch for me on this. The lengths these people will go to destroy you, to the point where a girl we both knew
Uh
from
huh.
like high school was
This is
working for
crazy.
Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
And because I guess our poll was like too pro Trump or something, they tried to set me up, Don.
Yeah.
She
I'm
asked him
talking
out on a
about
date.
with
She
like
asked him out on a
infidelity.
date.
What do you,
It was
all to
hysterical.
try to catch me in that position, a compromising position. I mean, this is, folks, these are the games. And they're not even games. They'll ruin your life.
Yep.
Because if I wasn't faithful or stupid, that would have been the end of the People's Pundit right then and there.
And that goes back to my point. I think they don't make the same human connection. I don't know if it's something with the ideology. I'm not sure. I mean, I think one thing we know for sure is they come from a place of feelings. And
Yeah.
I think on the right, when I
Instead
talk
of
to people,
reason.
we talk
Yeah.
reason and facts and we can
Yeah.
talk through things. They come from this place of feeling, but I think they just don't make those connections. And I've never said this on the air before. So I've been on the air for a number of years and I've never said this. Ever since I started my show, my dad doesn't speak to me. He has not spoken to me once since I
Holy
did
shit.
my first show. He's a far leftist. He's a union guy. He was one of those guys that, well, went and messed with non-union guys, and he was very proud of that. But we always were able to talk. He knew, I mean, we knew we were different politically. As soon as I started doing my show, and he will never speak to me again. We will never speak again, not because of me. I'd talk to him right now, but he won't talk to me. So how do you do that? Can you imagine?
Wow.
Can you and Laura imagine never speaking to your kids again? I'm never going to speak to you again for
Never.
almost for whatever reason. How could you ever say I am never? He didn't speak to his own dad, his own father, who was a conservative, lifelong Republican conservative. He didn't speak to him for like 30 years. And he used to go around telling people, the next time I see my old man, it'll be at his funeral. Probably
Oh,
tells people that
That's
now about me. I
horrible.
don't know. It's
I'm
a
sorry.
horrible thing. So I don't mean to call my dad out here on the show, but it's just a reality, and it makes the point that there's something missing there in the human connection thing from just one human being to another. That just doesn't exist. So
Yeah, I learned not to speak to my titis anymore because they are very, 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 very democratic to the point of there's no reasoning.
mhm,
And I'm like, Titi, just let's disagree.
agree to
I mean,
disagree.
let's
Yeah.
agree to disagree because I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to keep fighting for you to learn the truth, and you're just being bullheaded. So
mhm,
we just need to resolve this and not speak politics ever. And we don't.
yeah,
We don't.
yeah.
So that's the
And your
only way
dad
we
doesn't
can.
either.
No, my dad gave a. And my dad's very conservative,
Mhm.
and which is like he's the only one I want to say out of the sisters and brothers that is conservative out of 5 kids.
Except for the husbands.
Yeah, that's funny, right?
Because
Isn't
they
that
all work for a
hysterical?
living.
Let,
Sorry.
Cállate la boca.
let,
Oh
let,
man.
let
But
me add
it's,
one other thing. Let me add one other
and the
thing. So,
kids. And they gave birth to mostly conservative kids. Well, I think it's about split.
Mm-mm. Some half and half.
Yeah.
But go
so
ahead, Don.
my dad still talked to my brother, who is also conservative. So he still talked to my brother. One time, I guess the subject came up. My brother stuck up for me and said, "Hey, actually, he does a really good show," and I agree with him. My dad hasn't spoken to him since.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
So
man.
he doesn't speak to any of his kids because of political views. I
Okay.
I actually have
can't
to
even
praise
imagine that.
you. I actually have to pray. I didn't. We have spoken. You and I have spoken about this privately before, and I actually have to accommodate you for saying that. It's not easy to talk about. I've
Yeah,
gotten lucky. I have conservative family members. I got liberal family members. I
your
But
dad's
you
have.
have a
cool.
conservative
Yeah,
wife.
I have
Yep.
seen. Unfortunately, I have seen them fight amongst each other so far, and it has destroyed relationships. But again, not because of the conservative point of view, because of the liberal member who no longer sees, their own brother or their own uncle or
Yep.
whatever as like a person.
Yep.
Literally called one a Nazi one day, just very typical MSNBC Rachel Maddow nonsense, as if you
Yeah.
haven't spent every Christmas with this person,
Right.
as if you don't know who this person is as a human being. Just horrible, horrible delusions.
Heartbreak.
Just delusions. And again, I hate to bring the religion thing up, but that was a big, I have to say, that's a big, I noticed that at least in my own family situation, Don, and at least in my, the friend I was talking about, his family situation.
Mhm.
It does seem to be this, like, well, I'm an agnostic or I'm an atheist, while the family is generally, a believer of some sort, even though we certainly all don't have different points of view. Most of my family's Catholic, I'm Protestant, kind of thing. But, it definitely seems that one is more militant, and the further away you get from some kind of spiritual belief, the more militant you become in those views. And that's a real tragedy, man. I mean, that's a real, real tragedy. I
Think
mean,
about that though, because that's like psychological. Because now you're still
it
trying to fill the
is.
void of God. All right, let's
Yeah.
just put it out there. I'm gonna put it out there. I have a father for a pastor, so ha. But when you take God out of an equation, all right. So now, who are you going to answer to? Where's the accountability coming from?
Yeah.
Like you, every obviously we as humans seek that higher authority. Granted, Democrats, they do it as in their representatives, but once you have God in that place, then you can think outside of other people's boxes instead of being trapped in a corner.
And the feeling of belonging, Laura, right? Like, so, like,
Yes.
if you're a Christian, you believe, and I would argue even other faiths, Jewish, of course, still,
Oh
you
yeah,
still
just God
believe
in
in a
general, like a higher
relationship with
power.
God, and that somebody loves you, and somebody believes that you belong, and that
Mhm.
you are part of something bigger. They take, and I mean, look, anyone who's ever gone to college knows this is true. They take these like wandering souls who are like struggling to find their place in the world and
Yep.
prey on it, man. And like, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like, that's what Antifa is: a bunch of suburban kids, suburban white kids who have no place in the world, don't know where they fit in, right? Don't know what they belong to, who believes in them. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So they are easy prey, and sadly, they become cannon fodder in this war of, against people, against your fellow human beings. Um, I will say this: today is September 3rd. It is the day in history where Frederick Douglass made his escape. And I'm not, trying to draw a comparison here, but I am. All right, so 2 years before, Frederick Douglass had tried to escape, and generally somebody who was good, treated good by the the master, basically was given a role, made their life easy. Ratted him, done, ratted him. That guy didn't see Frederick Douglass as a human who could be punished with his life, but certainly physically punished. And instead of seeing him as a human being trying to make his great escape and do better for himself, he bought the master's line of thinking, hook, line, and sinker, and ratted on Frederick Douglass. So much so that if you read his autobiography, and I shared the link from history, actually takes an excerpt from it, puts it up. He thought that next time he made his escape, that was it. He was either going to make it this time, or that was it for him, And think about first of all, it was another human being who ratted on him. You understand what I'm saying? Not only another human being, but another slave. Another slave. I mean, he, instead of seeing himself as a part of a population of slaves, he was already part of something greater. He just couldn't see it. And instead, that was replaced with a completely different mindset, one of oppression, I might add. Whether it's physical or mental, spiritual, it's oppression. And it led him to think he was actually doing the right thing by turning in Frederick Douglass. This is jealousy. I'm not sure there's that much different in the mindset here. It's still a slave mindset, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's that ability to, and it's what I don't understand about it all. The ability to just turn off the emotion, to disconnect, because these are human emotions. I mean, I see people as a human being, and so they may not agree with me, and that's okay. My thing on the show, the moniker is where it's okay to be a conservative. I also say it's okay to be a liberal. It's okay to be an independent. It's okay to be in the Green Party. It's okay to. We're all humans. We all make choices, and I don't know how you toggle that on and off. Like all of a sudden, there's no human anymore, and we're all humans. So I just, that's one thing I will never understand, and I think there's maybe some people on both sides. So I'm not saying it's all one side, but it seems to be pretty consistent on the other side. So
I don't see conservatives turning in their. I did see it in Gainesville. I did not see conservatives turning in their neighbors for not obeying a mask mandate during a barbecue or something. I'm serious.
Right.
I mean,
that's a whole lot of special.
But very blue Gainesville. We saw that. I mean, this is just crazy stuff.
Do you have a question for the two of you?
Yeah. I was actually just going to ask you if you want to.
I know. I read your mind. It's crazy. So for Rich and Don, why does it seem that Biden administration left the military equipment for the Taliban to fight the rebels in, I'm going to butcher it, Panjshir Valley?
Maybe left it for the Chinese. You ever think of that? By the way, who did the Taliban announce today they will be using to normalize trade relations? Where's all their stuff going to go through? The Chinese. So I wonder, Don, if he wanted two things: a 9/11 anniversary photo op and to kick back to his Chinese masters. I'm just going to say it.
I'm going to go with this was just such incompetence on every level of it. I think this was just the guy simply wanting to not be Trump. He wanted to be the opposite of Trump, and now we see what the results are of that. Yeah, he won. Congratulations, you're not Trump, because none of this happens under President Donald Trump. I think it's just massive incompetence and just the need to do it completely the opposite of whatever was worked out when he took over. So I'm just going with incompetence.
And he's not going to have. I can't wait to get back in the field this weekend. It looks like we're going to hit the target. At least I hope so. But we're 5 out of 6 already. So and by the way, for those who this is kind of a show announcement, but if you do go to, some people continue to go to Venmo even after we went to not many, but some people do. Send me a message or leave me an email or something so I can put you at least into the system. Transparency is key here. The last thing I want to do is have a single contribution slip through the crack. We have to be on the up and up here, 100% transparent, 100% cross T's, dot I's, be on the up and up. But I need your email to be able to do that. So if you want to give some money through Venmo, that's fine. But just make sure you will also give me an email that I can send you a receipt and we can go about this the right way. All right. So I just wanted to say that because I noticed a few.
Another
And
question.
one person I contacted, but I noticed since we've been on the show, it was like one or two, and I'm like, I gotta reach out to them too, just so everybody else knows. All right. Go ahead, Laura.
All right, so Lamb Crow wants to know, what do you guys think about the Georgia film subsidy for Republicans, and should they kill it? Atlanta is now a second Hollywood, and many Chamber of Commerce Republicans refuse to touch it.
What do you think, Don? I mean, I got my own feelings about this. Economics is politics, and I wouldn't invite any of that into my state. Period.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess
Even Nashville's liberal now, Don. Look at that.
yeah, it's true. And I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking they're probably like number 3 now in filmmaking.
Yeah,
I
probably.
know the New Orleans area is right up there too. So Louisiana was a big one that came into this. I'm all for the free market stuff, and I think it was cool what they did to say, hey, listen, all these movies don't have to be made in Hollywood. So here's some tax breaks to come out here and come into our area. It brings a lot of economic, good stuff to those areas where they do it at. So I don't know. I always side on free market. If the state wants to do that, and I'm also a states' rights guy. So
Yeah,
if the
no.
state wants to keep that going and keep doing that, I think it's great. And I'd rather see the movies made anywhere but Hollywood. That's just me.
I think the verdict is out on it. I mean, it could very well end up being a good thing, Don. I mean, it very well could have. I mean, I think that the military took a northerner like me, born in New York, and turned me into a salt of the earth, American. Oh, by the way, as we were talking about before, Rasmussen today came out with a poll about how many deaths do you think? How many people? Whatever. What is the risk if you get COVID? How likely are you to die? Kind of thing. How many people do you think out of 100 die from COVID? Whatever. I forgot how they worded it. But again, they shared it with me this morning. I'm looking at it. Jumped right out at me. Same thing we found. Same thing Pew found. Same thing Gallup found. The bottom line is because they ask who you consume your news from. And Laura, you can attest to this. I'm going to keep kicking it to you every time you have inside information on stuff. We have conducted voir dire on numerous national high-profile cases. And just like COVID, and just like the facts of the case in some of these high-profile cases, the more liberal and corporate your news source, the more misinformed you are. So
facts.
That's
Imagine
the
that.
fact. It is a fact. If you are a left-wing cable news watcher, CNN, or even MSNBC, you are the least informed person out there. If you read the New York Times over the New York Post, you are less informed. It's incredible.
It's sad.
And this is provable. This isn't me dissing on a left-wing outlet. So when going off of what we were talking about before, it's hard to break through even when you have friends and family. Really, these news sources do matter. And in some cases, they really are the enemy of the people because somebody's life is on the line.
Yeah. How do you know more than Jim Acosta? Like, for instance, when we had to prove the fact that Jim Acosta lied, saying that Trump supporters were coming in on him. They were rallying around him.
They were rushing him. He was threatened.
His life felt threatened. And then I panned to the right, showing the crowd, which was 50 feet back, behind a fence, laughing at them and telling them that they suck.
He completely fabricated that, and Laura and I listened to him talk to his cameraman about how they were going to make it look like he was in danger. He completely fabricated that event. And
did he hate me?
We were right next to him, and we're like, "Dude, do you really think we're not going to turn the camera on you right now?" Like, because they're not used to that. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they hate alternative media too, by the way. Because Fox News was going to let Jim Acosta get away with that. Let me tell you guys. Everyone else was going to let Jim Acosta get away with that. That was a total scam. Were they screaming CNN sucks and everything? Yes. But he was never in danger. And when they started screaming CNN sucks, that's when he came up with the idea, let's make it look like we're in danger here. Mm-hmm. And they did it. They carried it out.
Well, that's why people like you and Don are a threat. You guys are the threat to the narrative which they choose to build.
And if your life is on the line, Laura, if you're a defendant in a case like Darren Wilson, when that happened, Mike Brown, hands up, don't shoot, right? And we're conducting voir dire to see who would be the best if this gets out of the grand jury. who knows more about the case than others, who has been basically, it's because it's worse, Don. It's not only that they think they know the facts of the case, but that they're wrong about the facts of the case, and they're unlikely to change their mind because they fully and blindly trust the information they were given. So those are like the worst jurors you could have. Unfortunately for Derek Chauvin, they did a poor job of voir dire research because those people not only lied, to get on, several of them, at least Mr. Mitchell, lied to get on that jury. But I can ask you who you get your news from, and I can understand whether or not you're going to be able to separate fact from
and
fiction.
be viable.
Yeah, right, and be a viable, choice for a jury, right? But sadly, if you tell me that you're going to be on, the jury of a high-profile case and you watch CNN, then I know flat out that you have the wrong opinion, or at least you're much, much more likely to have not the wrong one, a false one. That's what I'm trying. Is a better way to put it, Don.
It's the reality versus the narrative.
Yeah.
So if you're watching MSNBC all the time, you're only getting the narrative. That's all you're going to get. The Mike Brown thing. That's a great example of this, because when did they get the most upset? What were they the most upset with? The actual event that happened where he ended up getting killed? Yeah. Or was it when they released the video showing, oh, he wasn't the gentle giant. Here he is throttling the South Korean store owner and stealing right before it was 15 minutes before the final ending happened to that whole situation. They were more upset about that than they were about the actual end result. So that tells you all you need to know. They were mad that people released it. You were a racist if you were sharing this video. No, I think it's pretty pertinent information to know that he was robbing a store and he wasn't the gentle giant. There was a guy after him, and they tried to call him the teddy bear. So this was a black gentleman who had gotten killed by the police. And so they tried to tag him as the teddy bear. So they went around and they talked to his high school football coach and all kinds of people. Everybody said he was a teddy bear. Nicest kid ever. Oh my God, he was an amazing guy. So they're talking about him. They're pumping the story up. Whoops. Then they find out he was actually a mass murderer.
Yeah.
He had killed young white women on 3 different college campuses, and they realized he was the guy because of the DNA evidence. So he just went away like poof. But the narrative was, after the gentle giant, Michael Brown, which, he's not the gentle giant either. Then it was the teddy bear. He's the teddy bear. Oops, he's a mass murderer. Okay, never talk about him again. And he went away like that. He was just gone. Never talked about him again. And obviously I wouldn't either. But it's a fact. It's what we talked about earlier. Facts versus feelings.
Yeah.
Do you feel that something should be this? Or do you really want to know? Is it that? I think that it comes down to that.
Yeah, just so people know, what percentage of people diagnosed with COVID-19 do you think have died from the disease? 40% of Republicans said less than 2%. Only 20% of Democrats said less than 2%. I mean, there's a right and a wrong answer here, folks. This is not, 30% of Democrats think that it's more than 10% of the people who catch COVID die. I'm not kidding. 30%, man, rounding up. That's just sad. And that is very much in line with what we found. Very much in line with what Gallup found. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to read the particulars of the case, but there's a high-profile Midwest case going on right now, and we asked people, where they get their news from. People who listen to YouTubers had a better understanding of what happened in that case than if you read the New York Times, the Washington Post, national newspapers, or watch cable news. And by the way, we split it up: Fox, CNN, MSNBC. And it is true that people who watch Fox were more informed. And I'm not a fan of Fox. But people who watch Fox News cable are more informed than those who watch CNN. I mean, it's not even close. But either way, if you watch CNN, you're better off watching YouTubers give their own take on stuff. Because they'll give you apparently give you a better understanding of the facts in these stories than CNN will, than Brian Stelter will, than, which Jake Tapper, if you're listening, you should be ashamed of that. I mean, you're not that bad, Jake. You're not that bad. Come on, man.
No, he isn't, and he knows he could do better than what he did, and I bet you he's ashamed of himself behind closed doors. But I'm gonna wrap this up with one final question for the both of you, and I'm also gonna add to it. So Lisa wants to know, do you think Donald Trump runs for 2024? And my additive is, who should surround Donald Trump so these mistakes never happen again that have happened in 2016 and forward?
I'm going to try to answer that without bias, Don.
Good
Because
luck.
I'd say Don and me and Robert. And
Let's be honest, though.
You know, but there are good people out. Look, Corey, you know, was not bad to have around in 15 and 16. I mean, he really wasn't. You know, Brad was overrated. I'm sorry, God bless him, overrated. Very grossly overrated. What a waste of time and effort going after some places that it was just no chance, just much better chances elsewhere. And as far as whether or not I think he's going to run, I think the chance of him running now are probably the best we've ever seen at this point. He'll be older, though, folks. You got to remember that. He will be older. So, you know, 3 years is a long time. It is. And he looks sharp as a whip still. He does. But, you know, I think he wants to. Tell you that. I heard him on, what show was that, Don? He was on speaking of a YouTuber. It was like on a YouTube show. And it was somebody had sent me a tape to it. I'm not sure it even aired yet. It may have been like Candace Owens or something. And I don't think it even aired yet. But he did. He said, look, I'll have an announcement very soon. I think a lot of people are going to want to hear it. So, I mean, it sounded like he was on the cusp. I could go back and go in my email and find it. But I don't think it aired yet, so I don't want to blow him up. But it was not a news outlet. It was like somebody like that. Let me go and look. Let me look. But yeah, I mean, he was like, look, you're gonna hear it soon, and it sounded very much like he wanted to. What do you think, Don?
Well, the last couple times I've heard him answer that question, and I think back to caught him on Hannity. I'll watch Hannity if Trump's on, but anyway, on that show, so his answer was, I can't say right now, which is, he's obviously, and he can't. He says, I can't say right now, but let me just say you're going to be very happy. Everybody's going to be very happy.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, knowing the ego that he has, and I don't mean that in a bad way, knowing the ego that he has, he couldn't possibly mean the opposite of that. Then if you're going to be happy that he's not running, he would never say that. But I also, I'm concerned about it because you've got DeSantis, you've got others. We have no idea who else wants to run. And I can see that being a little messy unless he's already talked to Governor DeSantis or, whoever else we're looking at here. As far as the team around him, he had a great team in 2016. He really did. I got to work with that team a little bit with Hope Hicks and Corey Lewandowski and some of those guys.
Corey was good, man.
He had a great team. And in 2020, not. So so two different things. I hope he learned from those two different experiences if he is going to run again. But I'm also with you on that too. He's going to be older. So, and you got to take that into account too.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end it. Great way to go. Listen, locals, I got to take my daughter somewhere later today for her birthday. At least if they don't destroy a 9-year-old's desire to go see one of her favorite people sing. I mean, we'll see though. I mean, so far it's looking like we're so good. But right now, there will be a maybe short break. And then I'm going to hop right to locals, and we're going to do something real quick. I just want to jump in and talk to you guys, go over the latest on the public polling project, where we're at on it, and then also go over the questionnaire and why I'm kind of leaning on thinking of doing things a certain way. The project's already big. I mean, it's already big. So we have to focus on basically 1-2 things with the addition of more trackers. And I think the goal this time is the generic ballot, Don. And then, of course, we can ask additional things about vaccination status, which I think is a great idea to add boosters to. But we do have to limit it. It's huge. I mean, it's a 9-minute interview. I'm trying to cut some fat off it right now. 9 minutes, as you know, I do not like. I like quick interviews, and people hang on. Otherwise, we get high-interest people, and that does not reflect the electorate. But, yeah, Don, tell everybody what you got. First of all, tell them about last night. Then tell them about today and, tomorrow. And we'll go from there. Well, so then we'll say goodbye,
Last night was really cool. So we had got to know Mark Oz Geist from Benghazi, the
Yeah.
Benghazi story, 13 Hours. He's a co-author of that as well. So I got to know him about a year ago at an event here in South Florida. It was the largest boat parade ever. It was a Trump boat parade, really cool. So we had 22 minutes with him, and we just really went in deep into everything going on in Afghanistan. He's got a nonprofit that he's teamed up with some other nonprofits, and he's currently working on getting Americans out of Afghanistan, which is, I think, like something the government's supposed to do. But I guess it's up to private citizens now, and Mark is one of those doing that. But we really got into what is it like, because he understands what it's like to be left behind. Those Americans right now are stranded. I don't care if Jen Psaki likes that word or not. She feels like they're not stranded. Well, they are. That's a fact. So there's an example of our reality versus. But anyway, so he talks about that, but he also talks about 13 hours. How people want to know, how real is it? What are some things that didn't really happen? And I asked him a question because I had actually never asked him before. Is it hard to watch that movie? I mean, this is a guy who was left for dead at one point at the end of that thing, but just an amazing guy. Talked about his organization, what he's doing to get people out, and it was really cool to sit down with him, catch up, and have that conversation. So that was pretty cool. Today, I did, just before I came on here, I did the pre-tape with Gloria Romero. Amazing. You guys, you got to see that. It was so cool. She's a Democrat. She's a Democrat. So she even said, I don't agree with Larry Elder on everything, but she laid out the case for why people and she's an influential figure. She's a Democrat. She's a minority. She's in those communities. And she's pleading for people to get out and, number one, vote yes on recall, and then vote for Larry Elder. And she makes an amazing case for it. And we talk about the hate she's getting. We talked about the media and how the media, I said, just imagine if it was different. If
the other roles were reversed, Don.
If Newsom was the Republican and Larry Elder was the Democrat, it would be Newsom's keeping down the black man, and she was like, yeah. And so, really cool interview. I was really impressed with her. I totally agree with her on education.
And even the coverage.
100%.
If it was a Republican majority leader in a red state,
Yep.
and a red state governor was up for recall, are you kidding me?
Yep.
Everyone would be carrying it. By the way, folks, watch that interview, because Don again is going to bring you something that the corporate media will not bring you. I mean, it's just incredible.
Here's why she was on my show today. It was actually the Larry Elder campaign that reached out to me, because nobody will have her on. No, nobody on CNN won't have her on. None of these people that have had her on over the years, even the local media in California, they will not have her on.
Yeah,
because she crossed the line. It's that whole human connect. She's no longer a human to them.
Incredible.
So they asked me would I have her on, because she wants to talk to people about Larry Elder and why she supports him. I said, I'd love to. So yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing we were talking about the media anymore. What media to watch? Well, you're not going to see her if you watch any of the ones who, with the stats you were given there. You're not going to see her, but you'll see her on my show. So that was really cool. We got Peter Hussey, of course. You will be here, and I would love to go over some of that vaccination stuff, the stuff we were talking about with your media sources, and what do you think the numbers are, as far as that would be great stuff to go over.
Man.
So maybe we can do that. And I'm going to play a little bit of what happened this Monday. We started a new show with Major General Paul Vallely, the Stand Up America U.S. show. Really, really cool stuff. We had Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney in there, and we had this amazing guy. He's an actor, 14-year veteran, though, who's also working, as we were talking, doing the interview. He's emailing people in Afghanistan, because he's go here, and we're going to have somebody take you from here to here. And amazing guy, Kerry Pattons, if you've heard of him before, but he's a really amazing guy. This week on Monday at noon Eastern time, and then we kick over to you guys, you and Robert. On this Monday, he's got Major General Joe Arbuckle. He's the guy, the Flag Officers for America, that called for the investigation into the elections, got all the flag officers to sign that, but now he's calling on the resignation of guys like Kirby and Milley and all these DOD people over this massive debacle. He's got hundreds of flag officers who are supporting this. So we've got him on, and we also have Colonel Larry Sellon, who's an amazing guy as well. So the general's cranking it out, and we're going to have General Michael Flynn, the next week. And these are long interviews, guys, so you can ask questions. They're ready to take anybody's questions. And come on, somebody's got to have a question for Major General Arbuckle or Michael Flynn, so yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. We're really excited about that. So tomorrow, noon Eastern time, for the Don Smith Show. Check us out. We got some great stuff.
I'm sure they'd all agree too, Don. The major difference, all these Dunkirk analogies are ridiculous. Major difference, Winston Churchill did not order the British government to get in the way of the civilians and former military people with boats, private boats, trying to get out, evacuate many people off the shores of that beach and that city. That was just, and by the way, that was Churchill's idea. They're doing it despite Biden's efforts. They're doing it despite the State Department's efforts. And it wasn't Biden's idea to get them involved. They did it on their own. No connection, no similarity with Dunkirk whatsoever. Don't even smear the memories of those people and their bravery by comparing them to Joe Biden, who's still, by the way, and I'm going to take this last word, we have a media now who is allowing Joe Biden, a sitting president, to recount conversations with rabbis at synagogues he's never visited while lamenting over how his political career was born out of the civil rights movement that he never participated in. Folks, I will leave you with that. This is madness. We are living in alternate reality, or Joe Biden is living in an alternate reality in that very like the mother said, like Kathy said, dimension-ridden head. And the media is doing nothing to tell you about the man's state. Folks, I don't give a damn what anybody says. You don't imagine you're different places that you've never been. I'm going to just leave it at that. All right, Don.
Maybe he's friends with Doc Holliday. You don't know.
That'll be next.
He used to drive an 18-wheeler. I know that.
When he goes to take that too. When he goes to take our guns away, he'll be recalling about all the conversations he had with Wyatt Earp about how effective gun control was. And, this is nuts.
In the Wild West.
In the Wild West.
Or you could ask Caesar before Brutus betrayed him.
I think he did play Tonto in the Lone Ranger, though, didn't he?
God's laughing like
I saw him. Really I swear I saw him do it, Don.
All right, guys, don't forget to follow Don. It's right there, donsmithshow.locals.com. All the best. See you tomorrow, my friend.
Bye, guys. Love you.
All right, guys, just last little wrap up before we go. Don't forget, support and share Public Polling Project. Let's we're so close to the finish line for Labor Day. It will still be the Labor Day 2021 national survey. So we'll get the generic ballot in there, and locals, we're about to jump on there. There'll be a few minute break here. We're about to jump in there. So don't forget to keep your eye out for that. I will give some notifications so some of you guys don't yell at me. All right. And with that, follow me.
Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support.
On Getter, at peoples_pundit on Twitter. And yeah, thanks of course for always for the support. And if I don't
and your time.
If we don't see you, if you don't have the time to follow, of course, long shows, hours here, an hour over there, then have a safe weekend, and we will see you guys soon. I'm not missing anything, I don't think, but if I did, I'm sorry. All the best, folks.
Deuces.
Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. us a way to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You